What's the plan, Tesla? Welcome back.
CyberSpace.
Empirical training. Do you know what I mean? So like empirical training.
Welcome back to the CyberSpace podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the CyberSpace podcast from Empirical Training. I'm Josh, one of the members of Empirical Training, former security analyst, threat hunter, and current product strategist. And I'm joined today with a full house. It's a continuation of last week's episode where we got our community to jump on the live chat. We streamed these recordings live, talked about some of the key discussion points that we've had in our community and get them to add some more color as well. But also, hey, we raised this and here's what we kind of learned. Here's where the conversation evolved to. We found this out from people who are struggling with certain areas of cybersecurity, and we found that this was really helpful for them. So it's a lot of talk about the latest topics, kind of cutting edge, as well as making sure that you can link it back to practical applications of, okay, well, how would I actually use this? Because that's a lot of what we do, right? There's a lot of news stories out there. You can subscribe to an RSS feed. You'll get all this news stories as and when they happen. But sometimes it's hard to actually understand, okay, how is this going to apply to me as my job as a security analyst? How can I use this to have better security conversations, whether you're trying to get a job or whether you're trying to make people care more about security in your organization as an existing cybersecurity professional or somebody who's responsible for cybersecurity to any degree? Or maybe you're just interested. Maybe you just want to see how this can apply to your daily life as well. There's all that coming up in this hour. We dive into some breaches, and we dive into some key trends, and we dive into some top tips, as well as answering questions from our community to help them with things like personal products and just things that are on their mind as they begin this journey into cybersecurity. So if you haven't already, head over to our Skool community, Skool, skool.com/cybersec or Empirical Training Skool on Google. You'll find us there. That's where you can get in on these conversations. That's how you could be part of this live recording next time we do one. But if you want to hear more, stay tuned, because we're joined with Robbie, former cybersecurity, SOC leader, current cybersecurity consultant. He has a fancier title than that because he was self-employed now, so he made it up himself. Forgive me for not quite remembering it. We've also got Vaughan, another SOC leader who also works in a security company that is focused on automation and the kind of enabling automation to make better cybersecurity operations run, so making people run smoother, get them to resolution quicker. He doesn't like to call it AI because he is a responsible automation engineer, automation specialist, but this is definitely stuff that you'll see people call AI in their kind of marketing materials. So he's on the forefront of automating and using AI in any which way that makes sense, not just any which way which sounds cool, but any which actually offers value into his organization. And we've also got AJ. AJ works for large financial organizations as an incident response consultant, so he has kept your money safe at some point, more than likely. He has responded to live incidents, live compromise, whether it be physical, somebody actually trying to rip cash machines out the wall, or whether that's digital, somebody trying to exploit an application or a server to kind of either steal some data or do some snooping, whatever the outcome might be. So he's great because he has that head, that cool, calm head, that when you hit crisis level, he has a methodical way of thinking that he's going to get you to the resolution as quick as possible, also responsibly as possible. And really interestingly, he's going to share some of his insights as well to how he approaches those problems, which is always what I like from AJ. So there, Josh, Vaughan, AJ, Robbie. We're going to be the people taking you through today, as well as some of our community. So you'll often hear us refer to them as chat. We might even call out some key names, the people who talk really regularly. So without further ado, let's get right back into the conversation. And we're picking it up with a conversation from Pierre, who's one of our gold tier members, asking us some general questions about what is commonly used in cybersecurity so he can feel more comfortable as he applies for his first cybersecurity role.
Pierre does have another question talking about which ticket system is most used in cybersecurity. The most used ticket system in IT support is ServiceNow.
Is it ServiceNow? Yeah, as he understands it.
I guess it is. We've used ServiceNow before our job. When me and Vaughan are working together, and it's very configurable, isn't it? It's like you can build on it and configure it in a way that's bespoke to your business. I've used Zendesk. What other ticketing systems have you boys used?
Yeah, ServiceNow is probably the most common. Other than that, Jira, Zendesk,
Oh yeah, Jira as well.
Jira is the one I use in my current day job. I've used Zendesk before. Anything else you boys have used?
So I'm doing a little hack here, and this is a way to kind of teach a man to fish. If you're ever wondering about what kind of security stuff is the most used, type in whatever it is. So in this case, ticketing system integrations with SIEM or with other tool, and then the ones that always come up, those are the ones that most people are using because people build integrations where the market share is.
Oh, interesting.
Makes sense.
Zendesk, PagerDuty, ServiceNow, Slack, Teams are the main ones I know I've seen people use.
Oh, that's a
Yeah,
good
there
little,
you go.
good little hack.
They're all the same, man. If you learn how to use one of them, and you know the functionality, then you can implement those skills into the other ones. And
Yeah.
we're actually going to be doing some courses on Zendesk as well in the not so
Yeah, like-
distant future.
Yes, something that as Robbie mentioned, we're going to be talking about is like ticket workflows and like your typical skeleton workflow for an ITSM. So where your ticket usually starts in and moves to and then ends up in for the different end states and how they can differ between different ticketing system providers in terms of the naming schemes. However, when you pull back all the bells and whistles at the end of the day, the skeleton, it remains the same.
Yeah, resolved, solved, closed. It's all the same thing, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean they don't really have any incentive to want to be different, do they? It makes no sense to them to create a completely unique thing each time. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, and people know we're going to move to different ones, different companies. If you try to be so unique, you'd have to really have a USP that meant that everyone then followed you, and it kind of it all normalizes out that way. Then anyway, so any gents, have you got any other posts? Because I've got one here from the UK hospital ransomware one that I posted today, but I'm also really interested if we can dig out some of the polls that we've done recently, just to get a feel of the type of things we're asking, the type of feedback we get. Usually quite fun.
If you want to start with that, the hospital one, because I think that's a really interesting story, and then I can go through and I'll find some polls to see what else we got.
Awesome. So I posted this one only about 5 hours ago, so people might not have had a chance to see it in the community. This is the one that's freshest in my mind, and it's a bit of a fun story because Andrew and I, AJ and I, we're in a lot of kind of social WhatsApp groups together because we grew up together. And our friend works in the NHS, so at the hospital. He's actually a kind of like a heart specialist. The man is not a picture of health, but he can sort you out. And he said, "Hey." He said, he tagged us both. He said, something's gone wrong with my work. I can't do anything, type of thing. Do you know what's going on? And, you get these type of questions. You're like, oh, F off. I don't want to do your tech support and tell you how to get into your email or whatever. But he started talking a little bit more. And he's like, oh, no, actually, this happened to everybody. I was kind of joking, but the hospitals just couldn't log into certain servers for where records, they're getting lots of tests information back. And this is another great example of how these stories evolve, and read as many news articles as you can about someone when you're trying to build up the picture, because they might have different nuggets in there, things they've either chosen to write. Sometimes they make mistakes, to be honest, as well. We've got to acknowledge that, like the botnet army of 1 million toothbrushes, which turned out to be a load of nonsense. But also these things, different bits of information surface to the top, and you've got to kind of view them together to have that balance of probabilities, because until there's an official breach investigation report, which usually happens months after, if it ever does happen, we are having to speculate based on the limited information that is out there. So this is a ransomware attack. You'd say they were locked out of their systems. It doesn't seem to have affected every system. So I think we've come a long way from the days of WannaCry, where they've compromised the Windows XP and they managed to ransom the entire hospitals because they had flat networks. So it sounds like there's a bit of segmentation, or it could be limited to certain divisions or certain partners they have. But essentially, they can't get to their machines, they can't get to the data. We know hospitals have loads of sensitive data up there, so this is a big deal. More importantly, it's a big deal because lives are being impacted, whether that's actually the extreme loss of life, somebody dies because they can't get treatment or they can't get an operation in time, or maybe it's just quality of life. People aren't seen to quick enough. They have to. It's not a nice situation to be in, regardless. And we in the UK, we're already quite stretched as it is with our free healthcare. So it's a big impact. And the talk about supply chain compromises earlier with the glacier, the snowflake compromise that we were investigating. This one has hints of supply chain compromise. There's a comment made in one of the articles I saw that let me read it out to get it correct. The common link between compromised hospitals is a partnership with a blood testing private company, the name of which I haven't got open right now, but isn't really important. So that's I actually shared that back with this guy, this anonymous person who works in the hospitals, and he said, "Now that's nonsense, because lots of ones who also use that same pathology testing partner." They haven't had so Synovis is the name of the partner. I might as well say it now. Synovis, they haven't been compromised. So he actually reckoned, from what we said, that he looked at, here are the common links I know with the ones that have been compromised. So it does still look like some sort of supply chain interconnected breach, but it doesn't look like a one and done. I wouldn't say it's the same as kind of they managed to exploit where the data is stored. This looks like servers are down. So either the servers are encrypted, they're ransomed, actually the old-fashioned ransomware payload, and locking people out. Or as I speak, maybe the provider just took it down offline where they can investigate things, and maybe it was just a data stealing attack. We still don't know. We do know that they are offline right now. We don't know anything about data that's been exfiltrated.
I think if we're going with what's the chances of the most common
let's start there.
What happened? I reckon they've got the blood, I guess they're like blood scanners or whatever the tools are. They've got remote access. The supplier's got remote access into the systems. They've got into this supplier. They've managed to then get remote access into all of these hospitals from there, which is usually used for support of those hospitals. But that's just a wild guess.
Mm-hmm. And we had a question from in the chat asking, when did this happen? How long have you been offline for? So it's believed to have happened on Monday. It seems that today it was really felt because I think probably happened late Monday, I would speculate, because this morning our guy works a 9 to 5 type of hours, and he came in, it's quite early in the morning, and started asking us. Yeah. Probably he doesn't have anything to do right now. Yeah, it is sad. Unfortunately, we could talk a bit about the agendas, the motives of cyber criminals. Do we think people who attack like hospitals are evil?
They're pieces of shit.
100%. It's absolutely savage.
You're an absolute scumbag. I hope you're listening to
that type of company.
Yeah.
Well, I'll offer the balanced thing then. If it's vulnerable, isn't someone going to get to it at some point?
Oh, Josh, you criminal.
Is it? Can I?
Josh, it was you.
If not me.
Yeah. You can see why. You can see it's most definitely a nation state. It's got to be, hasn't it? Usually, it's nation state linked or government backed attacks. When they target infrastructure like that, it might not be. It might be speculating again, but it's usually linked government back hackers and agencies that usually target these kind of hospitals and things.
It's an interesting angle though, and Josh, I know that we've spoken about this in the Skool community before, but it's very much a case of like some threat actors think that, well, not to be religious, but they're doing God's work and they're doing the right things by hacking some companies and maybe like health hospitals and NHS and these sorts of organizations, and they believe that they're conducting a penetration test. For anyone just listening, I used air quotations on that one.
I can hear them.
Yeah, they're trying to show that, you are vulnerable and we're almost doing you a favor by hacking you because your systems are this bad. But yeah, it's one thing that I really enjoy is trying to understand the mindset of some of these hackers, and it's probably why I've got kind of pulled down the threat intelligence sort of avenues in the past. And
in this scenario, because what we want to talk about there is what we often call a grey hat. I think we still use the white hat and black hat terms. We might not these days, but it's where they're kind of, they still do the bad things, but they do it for a good reason or a kind of more of a plausible reason. But hey, the real grey hat would have notified them, or is that making them white hat if they kind of notify them and say, hey, I've got in here, I might want to fix this. How do they put the pressure on? I guess a grey hat would cause this disruption and then give everything back and be like, told you so. It could be a lot worse if I was the real bad person.
So it could be a begrudged client. They didn't like the treatment, so they're trying to get back at the doctor.
I see where you're going with that. I can see it on like a large shout.
Sounds like a movie plot to me.
It does, yeah. I see it on a larger scale where we know that the UK government hasn't or doesn't always have its best interests in other countries. So there has been talks of the UK has dropped bombs in Syria and places all around the world. So you could think that any of those bombs that they've dropped have hit hospitals potentially. So those countries are then just targeting in response. So whether you drop a bomb on a hospital or you take it out for using a cyber attack, they kind of two in one the same. Probably not quite as severe, but again, that's what I would lean into. So I can see where Sophia's going. I would think it's revenge, but I think it's government revenge.
The thing that comes to mind for me when you talk about a begrudged client is Walter White and a Breaking Bad sort of moment.
He's gonna get his. He deserves it. Yeah. That's thanks for bringing some levity into that, Vaughan. But that was a really good point, AJ. You know, that kind of, you can't drop a physical bomb on the West, really. You know, what would happen before, but this is the way that you can kind of have the similar impact. You know, obviously, I don't think that probably you shouldn't really compare them. It's like for like, but there's definitely, I can see your points there, the kind of impact, and we have seen Russia quite publicly say, hey, you know, we aren't behind all these things targeting the West, but if you are a hacker and you want to target the West, you have our blessing. We will never come after you. So they're basically green lighting anybody who lives in their kind of control regions, that if you attack the West, we will, you know, great. They might even, I wonder if they even kind of give them little clues, like how we get clues as defenders from the kind of defensive bodies, and they say, we've seen a threat actor in your network, here's a kind of tip off. I wonder if the Russian government do something similar. Hey, we see these guys are vulnerable. It's like almost like a bounty. You know, like weaknesses is RCEs, a weakness is credentials because they haven't got MFA. Go at them, everybody. I wonder. We have seen China did do that similar thing. They put contracts up for private companies to bid on, essentially, to do their cyber espionage. So it's this blurring. Really? You mentioned state sponsored. Yeah, these are kind of like where they're not necessarily the state themselves. It's not the government bodies doing it, but they kind of encourage or reward these actions as well. Chat logs are released on that by a disgruntled employee, always the way. And you can see them kind of offer out these contracts, and then people bid on them who were otherwise look very innocent companies, like they were doing cybersecurity awareness training, and then on the side they were compromising governments in Malaysia and whatnot.
That's pretty crazy. This is why I love cybersecurity. You're going to say it. Go on, you run with it.
I was literally about to say the same thing, AJ. Like, I'm not really into politics as a human, but the whole like cyber espionage sort of like this country fighting against this country, man, that gives me tingles.
It's an interesting point that Sophia raised earlier that we didn't touch on, is like the government, any government should be making sure that hospitals are the most secure. So, you know, what's the UK doing to ensure that there's a big budget around cybersecurity for all UK wide hospitals? Like, is that something that is important to someone like Rishi Sunak?
Yeah. Doesn't win elections, I don't think, that pledge, unless enough of these things get high profile. Unfortunately, we're quite reactive in that respect. Yeah, maybe the Chinese government's doing with the foresight because they don't have to worry about election cycles. Putin as well, obviously. But I do know some stuff that the UK government do, and that governments in general do for these kind of bodies. Where so they have for the NHS, that's the UK one, for example, they have like a shared cybersecurity function. So there's like basically like digital forensics incident response on retainers provided by the government. So these people have dropped in already. There's some shared resource there. They also do. It used to be just Cyber Essentials. I think they've moved on now. They have their own kind of NHS Essentials or NHS kind of mandate. So every trust has to tick these kind of minimal compliance standards. But it is still. Yeah, I think it's difficult, you know, when you got to keep business as usual, those type of things. You can't just kind of rip it and replace it or start from scratch and build something. So they are, in an ideal world, you'd probably want to start again and kind of bake these processes in. It seems to be a little bit difficult retrofitting them. And if our speculation is correct, right, this is a supplier as well. So it's not even someone the government would have probably even touched on. I've only really seen financial services start to really talk about scrutinizing third parties, critical IT suppliers, they call them. So they have to obey by the same kind of security standards as the bank itself. Haven't seen that in NHS, in healthcare stuff. It probably exists in like government contracts, like security and whatnot. But that's not my area. I'm going to bow out there.
No, that's a good point, though. And I think, Sophia raised another good point. International humanitarian law, also known as the law of war. So does cyber attacks come under the jurisdiction of that? Which I think they should, if there are civilians or medical personnel who are hurt in this kind of attack, then it could be considered a war crime. So again, that's why cybersecurity is so crazy, that you think that you're just working for a small company doing cybersecurity, but on a outside perspective, there's a lot going on that you couldn't get involved in. So you may start in a small company, you may start in a managed service company where we all started. But if you want to go and work for the government and get involved with this, you're more than welcome to do that. That is totally up to you. So there is a lot of scale. You can go into threat intelligence for a government, or threat intelligence for maybe an organization which deals with government contracts and things like that. And you might not be able to talk about a lot of it, but you can definitely get involved with it. That's why cybersecurity is so great.
And this, you've walked into my area of expertise, Sophia, with in the chat. This is because law is what I was initially doing, and this international law, conflict and strategy was what first opened up my eyes that there was cybersecurity out there, and that, Vaughan, exactly like you said, it was those grey areas that made it all really interesting. It wasn't the kind of rinse and repeat cycles you sometimes think you see from like politicians. It was like, oh, this is all uncharted territory. So on the international law point, and I'm not sure how well our international law statutes are kind of really holding up in the application these days. But the armed conflict is kind of referred to as any two parties that are determined to be at war, and they don't have to like both acknowledge or both say it. So you often hear terms like, say, do a war on drugs. That's kind of similar to kind of we're declaring a war, because if one party declares it, then it technically counts. But also it can be linked to a loss of life. So if there is impact of a loss of life that can be proved to be the actions of somebody else, like direct actions, then that can also constitute kind of an armed conflict there. And so it's interesting because these rules are created, these laws. I mean, I'm looking, it's a Geneva Convention, right? 1949 is what a lot of this was built off, trying to stop after the World War. They do their best, but legislation is slow. They really struggle to anticipate the techniques of tomorrow. So I think cyber war has definitely entered this realm, but it's hard to prescribe for. So they have things in there that are very broad and open, so you can be kind of applied, so that anything leading to direct loss of life is that kind of example. So if the impact is somebody dies because of this cyber hack, the Stuxnet one is the first one I ever saw, where the alleged US dropped a memory stick, then made the centrifuges all go off and whack, exploded, killed somebody from radiation. Technically, the first, like, I say confirmed, but everybody believes it, but nobody can really prove it. So nothing's actually happened. But that's like the first time where everyone generally accepts, that was a cyber attack by a government that caused a loss of life. So that's kind of where it does enter this armed conflict territory. And I've got some other stories as well about like how other futuristic weapons kind of have to be legislated for. So there's a rumor about proportionality. Like if your goal is to disarm someone in contact, they made, I think it was like a laser beam gun. It might have been microwaves. It was some sort of radiation. It didn't fire bullets, but you pointed at somebody, blinded them for life. So this was, look, they thought it was, they thought it was as great. We've got a way to not kill people, but kind of nullify them. Like no one's going to be able to stop you if they're blinded completely. Actually turned out to be illegal. Nobody's allowed to use that weapon because they decided that blinding someone for life was not proportional to like putting them out of action for half an hour, whatever you wanted to do. Which is interesting because surely then killing them must also have been out of the scope. But they were trying to find a way that didn't kill people. But I don't know. I wonder what it'd be like to live without your eyes for the rest of your life when you've kind of grown up seeing.
I can tell this is something you're passionate about, Josh. I see the light in your eyes.
I don't think it'd be the best.
Yeah, I was doing some quick Googles to make sure I didn't say anything that was inaccurate, because you do have to be very accurate in law.
Law boy.
Law, boy.
Oh, I know the law.
Oh, I love law. But yeah, no, great questions. You really set me off there. And I love to talk about those type of bits. So chat, if you ever start talking geopolitics and cybersecurity, just at me and I'll emerge and join the conversation.
immediately, no matter what time it is.
Yeah.
Just
Homer
pops
Simpson
in on
coming out
Skool.
of those bushes. Nice. Has anybody got any other Skool posts? This is great. We're really going down some rabbit holes. But I don't want to kick us off on another area. Something they talked about, something they shared.
I've got one, Vaughan, you shared 7 days ago. I'm mentoring my SOC team, and you asked which category do I call them the cyber schoolers. I'm trying to coin it. I think it could be either quite cool or not so cool. The cyber schoolers, which category do you fall in? Gaining knowledge through certifications or gaining skills through projects? Vaughan, I don't know if you want to touch on
Yes, I can talk on this one. So in my corporate job, I'm currently going through a phase with my team members where some are at a stage where they have the knowledge and they're trying to build the hands-on skills, and some are limited from working on projects and building these skills because of their knowledge. So we kind of have two camps at the moment. One camp are trying to work on certifications and build that knowledge, and then the other ones are being set these more challenging projects to help build and garner the skills alongside it. And yeah, this poll is mainly just to kind of see where our community is lying in regards to the two areas. I'd imagine a lot of people that are coming into the free community that are starting to get interested in cybersecurity are very, very much at that beginning stage, and it very much is a left to right approach of needing to build that knowledge first around taking certifications, learning things like A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, in order to have that knowledge, which then opens up the avenues of working on the personal projects to then build the tangible skills. It's going to be very hard to build the projects and build the skills without having the knowledge to use as the foundation. And I very much do believe that it goes hand in hand to build a great analyst that will actually see you into the future and help you land a role in cybersecurity.
Nice. I like that a lot. So the poll, it was a poll though, right? So what was the kind of logic there to try and get people to say
Yes.
what?
So the poll is essentially trying to identify who in our community has more of a need for the certification and the knowledge build, and that's going to help us tailor our free community and our gold community around more knowledge-based certification work, and then how much of our community is kind of at a stage where they have the knowledge and they need the hands-on practical project-based skills. And the outcome of that, if that was the identifier, will be more project-based walkthroughs and written descriptions and those sort of things. And from what I saw, it's pretty much an even 50-50 split, which you can either say is helpful or not. But I mean,
not now. It's
no?
six votes to skills through projects, 2 votes to
amazing.
gain knowledge through certifications.
Awesome. So yeah, it looks like the people be asking for projects. So I think following that, I dropped a couple. We're actually looking to put an actual project classroom into the gold community, if I do remember correctly. So hopefully we'll have some video walkthroughs and stuff in there too, which will be super exciting.
Nice. Might live stream myself doing those, because my projects have died by the wayside as I've moved into my softer roles. Was trying to unpack Aurora EDR the other day. Didn't get too far with it, but it's something I'm going to try to keep burning, because I think EDR is narrow enough to kind of again. I know, Rob, you shared one of our colleagues who we used to work with, who's now a security researcher, and he was assessing the coverage of different EDR tools, wasn't he, as well? So there's a lot of it's quite interesting. Well, one is quite interesting, just what it kind of tells us about EDRs and maybe making those decisions. But I thought 2 is more interesting to see somebody we worked with the exact same role who's also gone off to another completely different kind of role and is specializing in security research only. Probably gets to wear a vest in his office and nobody tells him off for it, because that used to come up a lot in our office and then when we worked together, right? Asking to put a shirt on.
He did like wearing a vest all the time, didn't he? Yeah, I worked with Vaughan, and I both worked with Sentinel-1 in our previous role, and I guess you kind of get a bit of Stockholm syndrome, where you think that tool is the best, because that's the kind of information that we were fed. Like Sentinel-1 has the best detection engines, and then looking at that report or the breakdown that Costas did, he's put CrowdStrike as the top EDR tool, and then I think SentinelOne is kind of mid-pack, but I know it's only one person's research, and we obviously can't take that as gospel, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point, that it's a point in time exercise to see what it is. We don't know exactly the methodology. I didn't read it, the full post that he did, but maybe he goes into more information there. But different EDR protection response, which actually kind of detects stuff on the endpoint and kind of block it or respond to it and kind of pull it down after the fact. I've realized they have many different ways that they monitor. They're all kind of kernel level monitoring, but some of them just completely ignore certain areas of the machines. If you knew what you're up against, you could kind of live there. And I'll actually have a great resource. I'll share this in the chat after this conference, because I saw a big Google spreadsheet that people had made talking about the different capabilities. It wasn't quite a like for like Costas with his kind of percentage score or his score ranking, but it did show me, okay, this has no coverage for these types of attacks. Bits jobs, for example, there are a few who didn't have any coverage for bits jobs, which is quite a common living off the land attack I would have expected for. There were some more complex features that are more edge that I wouldn't expect everyone to have. But yeah, these kind of it's an interesting one, because we can never really evaluate it. And even if you can, threats change tomorrow. So the worthwhile exercises doing, but obviously good point out the kind of pinch of salt you've got to take any results with.
Yeah, definitely. And I actually agree with a lot of it. I haven't used CrowdStrike that much, but I've used SentinelOne quite a bit in the past, and yeah, they're not as good as they say.
We, in the incident response exercise that I did with one of our and this global company, basically their IT teams, where we simulated a kind of an attack, or had simulated an attack and let them kind of investigate it retrospectively. We tried to also use CrowdStrike for that, and we really struggled to get it to fire off. In the end, the best thing we got was we cancelled the download, and then it did partial download. No, to be fair, it blocked it, so then it was a partial download. But interestingly, did another alert on top of its partial download. But these, I also have to be fair that we did make the malware up, so it didn't have any reputation stuff to go on. But I was expecting it to, when it starts to use PowerShell to.
Yeah, I don't agree with. I don't agree with the vendors where they say that they're doing it based on like static analysis. You got to pick up on those behaviors, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's what's disappointed me, where they say they do behavior analysis and things like that trigger, and they're like, yeah, I didn't see it.
Yeah, downloading a PowerShell PS1 file off the internet and then it telling PowerShell to do things that is disruptive. I thought that was enough behavior.
Yeah.
Jump in there. We did use 7-zip as our encryption payload, though. So maybe it was like, what budget attacker would use 7-zip, which is like a free tool you can zip your files up. Mickey Mouse hackers. But yeah, it just kind of shows the points, right? This is why you can't solve security. You can just be prepared for it, which is why security analysts are needed, right? We have as many tools as possible. We try and block as much as we can, because if you can block it, great, and doesn't become a big issue. Catch it upstream, but we know we can't. And again, I know I say this all the time. I said this in our course. We talk about defense in depth in one of the modules in Skool. But the Swiss cheese analogy is always the one that resonates most with me. You know, if you buy those slices of cheese and you start laying them on top of each other, eventually there are no holes. But if you poke, some areas are weaker than others. So the idea is to kind of see no holes, but then also you're always going to have weak spots, even when you've got a whole block of cheese of slices. I don't know. Does that work, chat? Do you like that one, or am I getting a bit too abstract with my metaphors these days?
I like it anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say chat can't respond straight away, gents. So I need you to
pauses or comment. We'll take a short interlude.
Oh, Sophia likes it.
We made somebody hungry.
And Pierre.
And the cheese. Nice. Awesome, gents. So
it's been good.
Yeah, this has been a very interesting one. I've enjoyed the kind of engagement, and it's actually quite nice to talk over some of these things as well, because I think sometimes some posts pass you by. Some posts you don't go back to the comments when it starts kicking off, and had some interesting updates today. Is there any? I reckon we've got maybe 10 more minutes in us. If you boys are happy, is there anything else we want to cover off? Or do you want to just do a general overview of what the community we've been talking about, really, where we're pulling these stories from?
I got one quick one just as a little tidbit for an extra win for our goal community. But we had one of our checking goals today where we typically go over the skill matrices for our goal community and chat about where they're at currently and where they want to go guidance wise. And today we had a little section which was almost like a mini webinar just talking about the pyramid of pain and the MITRE attack framework. So a little extra boost in that technical, which I think went really well, and then I enjoyed personally. So yeah, like getting a lot more than you bargained for some of these calls, I think.
Yeah, it's nice. I love the community-led pieces where they ask for things. I mean, we already saw it on this a few times. We've been set off by messages in the chat to talk about different MFA circumvention techniques. For me to go off on one about international law and security. So yeah, it really makes it makes this a lot more fun, doesn't it? And also we know we're helping answer the questions that are top of mind. It's a nice one there, Vaughan. If you do want access to us, that the best way is Skool.com. That's where you'll find us engaging with people on a daily basis. With a K. Skool with a K. Skool for cool kids. /cybersec. Excellent. Skool.com with a K /cybersec is the full URL, or you can Google empirical training or cybersecurity and Skool. But yeah, hopefully this kind of is a good example. If you listen to the podcast all the time and you haven't made it over to the Skool community, what on earth are you doing? Let's make this a bilateral conversation rather than just us talking at you every week. I know some people who listen to this who used to work with, so maybe they can stay out of it actually, because we don't need them coming for us in the Skool community. I get enough messages on my personal. But yeah, it's kind of testament. The stuff we talked to today, I think, has been really interesting to see not only what we talk about, but also kind of why we talk about it, how it's relevant to us in our day jobs today, and how it's also relevant to people who are trying to get into cybersecurity. Because these are the things you don't get taught when you do those certifications. You don't get taught in university is how it works in the real world, what people actually think and feel about cybersecurity. When we see something in the news, how do we react as people who've been in the industry for a while? Do we all start panicking, or do we kind of break down and think, not this again? So hopefully that's been helpful, and I've enjoyed talking it through as well, a little bit more engaging.
Yeah, it's been really good.
We covered a lot on this one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So as always, if you want to see more of this, we've already see people in our live chat right now. But if you weren't in the live chat, you want to leave us a comment wherever it is you're listening to this. We do love the feedback. We do take all of it on board. We will take suggestions for episodes as well, or for trying out different things. It makes it quite fun for us as well. But hopefully we'll do some more of these, because I think this actually is really valuable, and I think it kind of keeps a bit of momentum. Hopefully we can get some more people in the chat engaging with us. But also hit us with the comments first. If we get those juicy ones in the Skool community, we want to talk about it there first, and maybe we can have a post-mortem analysis after we've had a big argument about where we think we've all landed on the different topic or scenario. Any other comments you want to make on the community, and kind of and thank them for giving us a lot of this kind of this content as well, before I do the little wrap up?
Just one thing.
Go on, AJ.
No, go shoot, mate.
Yeah, I was just going to say the power of even the free community, because I've just responded to, we've actually got this master's student who's taking on a cybersecurity project and trying to ask myself if I've got any research questions that can help him with his project. Obviously, I asked him what the title of his main project is. If we do have time, obviously the free community, our time is limited, but if we can, I will try and respond to questions like this. It's very interesting for us. For myself, I want to see what his project is all about. If I can help him, I can help him. But most of our time is obviously taken by our goal community, but we are there in the free community to make the most out of that as well. And everybody else that is in there as well. We've got quite a few security professionals in there as well. Like we mentioned, another Andrew's in there. We've got some great people in there. So the community aspect itself in the free community is worthwhile. Come in there, ask questions, make posts, keep the engagement up in there, because that's how you're going to get the most benefit. And then you've also got the other stuff that Josh has explained as well.
And anyone that's listening that either works with us or used to work with us, and you're not in the Skool community, what are you doing, mate? Get in there, start dropping some value. Do us all a favor.
The person I was thinking of, he hasn't even got time to listen to the podcast anymore. He's been worked very hard. One of our old leaders. He was the one I was thinking when I was like, maybe let's leave him out here. We don't need extra. We don't need him him messing with us in real life, as well as on there. But no, the one poll. If I could do a poll that would force everyone to answer, I would want to ask: are you a lurker, or do you ever come on this page anymore, or are you engaged? Because I myself, when I go and join communities like that, I am very much a lurker to start with. I like to just see what's going on, absorb what's happening, get a feel for it before I start to feel, I guess, confident or kind of just wanting to engage. So I think we've got a lot of lurkers in next. We have some consistent people who engage. We have a lot of people who pop their head up now and then. Yeah. But I think there are more people reading the post than so if you want to have a track, go for it. There are no stupid questions. I think if anything, we've kind of showed today our thought process when some of these posts that we share looks like we have all the answers. Absolutely not. That's the beautiful thing about this industry. It's always a discussion. It's always up for debate. Which means that you can come with whatever position you might be offering. We ask you, just maybe don't use ChatGPT for every time for your responses.
Just one closing thing from me as well. Obviously, we're trying to give back to our community and celebrate their wins as well. So anything that our community does in terms of landing a job interview or getting their first role, we want to be able to celebrate that and shout about that with you guys as well in our Skool community. So anyone that's listening, if you're getting certifications that we recommend, if you're landing your first role, please let us know. And we want to shout about it from the rooftops and celebrate your achievement with you.
That's a great point. Hey, maybe 5-10 years time we can have a reunion with all the people who've been part of the community from the beginning or a little bit, and see where we've all ended up. Because flipping heck, I think when we all sat next to each other all those years ago, we didn't think we'd quite end up in the different roles we're currently in, or even more so that we'd end up on a call today on a Wednesday night, chatting away about cybersecurity. So, and he's back. Robbie's back just in time for me to do my closing, so he can end it off.
That's a wrap.
That's what I need you for. But thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Thank you even more to the people who participated in the chat. You know who you are. I won't say your names, particularly some people who've come up there. We want to get more of you involved in here. Come find us. Follow us on social media if you haven't already. There's loads and loads of value that we can offer, and we can meet you wherever you want to meet you, whether it's on your phone, whether it's in your earphones, whether it's on your computer. Lots of ways to engage with empirical trading, lots of ways to get more access to cybersecurity, no matter where you are in your cybersecurity journey. So AJ, Robbie, Vaughan, thank you very much for your time today. As always, you guys will make this all happen, right? We're all in this together, and it keeps it all going, keeps it fun for us, and hopefully for our audience as well. I see the chat have definitely enjoyed this edition. So I think that's all I have to say. I've been Josh and Robbie.
Oi, that's a wrap, guys.
I think that might be it. I think that's a wrap, right?
CyberSpace podcast.
Empirical trading, you guys are you know what I mean? So like empirical trading, that's a wrap, right?
CyberSpace podcast.